Daniel Penny is making the rounds on right-wing media. He was not found guilty in the killing of Jordan Neely after Daniel Penny choked him for over 5 minutes as his body went limp, and other riders were observing that his body was going limp, and Penny did not let up. But in the vein of Kyle Rittenhouse, the right wants him to be a folk hero now, because as Matt made this great point earlier, there's currently a folk hero that's a little bit more threatening to people. Don't they wish that this trial happened just a few weeks ago?
Only so much folk hero energy to go around.
Because no one really, when you put up this guy, now let's just show his face for a second. This dead-eyed, glorified Bob's Burgers character. I stole this from somebody because he does look like he's from Bob's Burgers with that long-ass face and his perm. That is not the folk hero. The guy that is the person who is resonating with people right now who killed somebody is Luigi Mangione, because he killed allegedly, not proven yet, a healthcare executive who is responsible for the deaths in some measure of tens of thousands of Americans every single year. And people are like resonating with that rage and going, I don't really know if I have sympathy for this guy. And perhaps we're all united in many ways along class lines. And we've all had these experiences with health insurers. The range is from celebrating to what he did to largely being okay with what he did, unless you're a media millionaire or somebody who works for the health insurance industry.
You're invested. Yeah, karma is, I think, often the rough rubric people put this under.
Right. So he's taking up all the oxygen in the folk hero space. And the right wing desperately wishes that it was this guy instead, because their false brand proposition of right-wing populism involves this freak summarily executing people that the right finds undesirable or who are too poor to have dignity in their life on the subway. And that's what their version of populism is, because it's for the kinds of people that already are supportive or in the tent of protection from conservative politics. It's people who are already have the upper hand in society. Those are the people that conservatives protect. So here he is on Fox Nation with Jeanine Pirro about why he killed that homeless man.
I mean, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. And like this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight
seems like it.
Very uncomfortable.
It should be.
Prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't.
Praise.
The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Hero.
I mean,
Hero. What a hero. Wow. You know, someone did get hurt. Someone got killed, actually. Someone died by your hand. But that's, I guess, not a person, huh? JD Vance is bringing Daniel Penny to the Army-Navy game this weekend. He's going to be in Trump's suite. Daniel's a good guy, says right-wing populist JD Vance. And New York's mob district attorney tried to ruin his life for having a backbone. I'm grateful he accepted my invitation and hope he's able to have fun. Oh, God, the burden. The burden of being a killer. It's just going to be it's so difficult for him to enjoy this football game with all this attention being heaped on him, and appreciate how much his fellow citizens admire his courage. Citizens, by the way. It's kind of often a right-wing tell when they refer to people usually as citizens or as consumers and less as human beings.
I mean, look, if
taxpayers is another one.
If Penny restrained Neely, which happens all the time. People that don't live in New York, don't have public transportation and just sit in their cars all day getting scared by like Steven Crowder or whatever. They post videos like of people having mental breakdowns in the subway saying, what would you do if this was a situation? And the truth is that happens semi-regularly, but not often. Usually times subway rides are uneventful. If Penny just restrained him and then let him continue breathing, nobody would be talking about
Exactly.
this. Nobody would be talking about this because it happens all the fucking time. The mob doesn't say, hey, why did you put your hands on that person who is saying it? The complaint here is that a guy was choked to death. The same thing that happened in Minneapolis. And again, people tried to minimize the actual lethality of these holds. But people aren't stupid. And so, and I'm not saying even Penny should have been thrown away for life. I think he is guilty of killing a guy, and that should have been recorded. And, you know, I don't know. There's not a whole lot else to say about it, besides the fact that it's being used as a way for people to sort of drive this crime narrative around that isn't about any kind of reality, but is about politics and getting political advantage for reactionary, the reactionary side of things.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. Jordan Neely was, I don't know, he was severely underweight. Severely underweight. I don't know how much he weighed, but you can see the video of him. I doubt that he would have been much of a threat, especially with Penny having the training that he did. He could have easily just had his hands behind his back, put him on the ground if he really thought he was that kind of threat, wait for the stop, the next stop, call for the cops, move on with your life, if he was really there to protect and serve. But why he's being celebrated is because deep down, this is like a, what do you call a film where you film somebody getting
snuff film.
A snuff film. There's a whole class of people, and it's also in the suburbs of these blue cities, Long Island, where he was from, or other parts of New Jersey and New York State, that watch Fox News, watch local news, love to see from their little fiefdoms and their little castles outside of the city. And again, this is not to besmirch people that live in the suburbs, but it is to besmirch people who consume this kind of content.
Your objects of propaganda, subjected to propaganda, and you need to realize it.
And you're watching Fox News or local news or reading the New York Post, or maybe you're watching some true crime. In your safe little space where you're at, you can look at the city and imagine how scary it is with all those black and brown people there and all of that filth. And you can't, and that is, I think, why they enjoy that video.
And there is a heinous straw man by somebody like Cenk Uygur, who says that we act as if this is a Shangri-La when we see these things. I think that's the exact word he uses.
Really?
He's a liar. Nobody is saying this sort of thing is good. What we do when we see people like Neely acting out on the subway is say society has failed that person. And we don't just say like, well, the dad should have been there, because probably that guy's life, I haven't looked into it, probably a little bit harder than most people's listening. And so we look at society as opposed to just say gesture and say, why won't leftists let immigration enforcement be immigration enforcement, or cops be cops? Because nobody likes any of this. But what is the actual way to address it? Is it with violence from the top down, or is it helping people live more dignified lives? And I fucking am so pissed that that Cenk is still doing this. And this is part of his main thing, where he's like, the left acts like this is just fine. It's not fine.
Well, it's
Nobody's saying it's fine. And anybody pointing to New York City as the center for like crime, I'm sorry, look at what's going on in the South. Why isn't that the focus? You know why? Because neo-Confederates want to emphasize crime in cities like mine. And so Cenk gets on a year ago saying migrants are allowed to punch cops because of the radical left now. Go fuck yourself.
It's just not based in reality. It really is something else. You know, you think very little of your audience, most likely, if you're making these arguments, but we know that crime has been down and has dropped in essentially every way except for shoplifting in the year 2024 from the year prior to that. And shoplifting did go up slightly, but to pre-pandemic levels. Rape reporting is down, although, again, low report rate for that, but say violent assault or murder. Murder, it's quite clear when somebody is murdered, all this stuff is down. And yet you're still seeing crime narratives all over local news. You see the valorization of a guy like Daniel Penny, who, again, could have restrained Jordan Neely by just holding his hands behind his back, but he chose to kill him instead. And you see that a majority of Americans still believe that crime is up. And you know why that is? Is because media outlets are manufacturing consent on this front, because it is titillating for a certain segment of the population.
Despite how triggering that word is to certain people.
It is titillating for a certain segment of the population to be able to, as I mentioned, from their suburban homes, go on their television and consume content that makes them feel Like, it's so unsafe out there, but it's so safe here. It validates them in a mundane existence. And it's the same reason that true crime is popular. It's the same reason that these videos of black people fighting one another are popular on social media and pushed to the top of the algorithm. It's the same reason that the New York Post is popular and all the sensationalist pro-cop media. And it gets conflated with the working class. Well, you know, the increased cop presence in New York City subways, you know who most vehemently opposed that? It's the working class of the city that is coming from the outer boroughs and commuting in or working for a wage that express their opposition. You can look it up. And also are the most frequent riders of the subways. So, like, the folks that are most invested in criminalizing people on the subway are folks that are bridge and tunnelers who consume the content that I just described and want to come in and see a show and go to Times Square and act like it's Disney World and not have to deal with the reality of having pain and income inequality in their face. And you know the number of people that die on the subway every year? It's in the single digits, or killed on the subway every year. Give me a break. So honestly, I haven't heard with what you're saying, but it's monetizing racial resentment and poverty and resentment from middle to upper class people about poor people.
And how dare you? How dare you, when crime does rise and these people are victimized disproportionately, do you point to anti-police activism as the cause when it is so obviously material pressures that go up during, say, a pandemic or a cost of living crisis? How fucking dare you look at people stealing detergent from wherever the hell, CVS, and say that what this shows is we need more violent suppression or state suppression of people who are poor, and not why is it that we have people stealing detergent to sell for like a few extra bucks?
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. It's people that blame poor people for their immiseration. And on that note, I just wanted to plug, because it reminded me, as we're just being as fully honest as possible here, I guess this is Christina, right? Do we have her? If people want to go support Cosmopolitics, Christina, this is kind of a pretty good indication of how it appears this network views people that may need some extra help. Christina of Cosmopolitics was critical of the way that TYT has been handling their coverage. And here's an image of how Anna responded, mocking her for asking her for money with help with her bills. You were sure a sweetheart when you were asking me for money.
Yeah, that's what people do to bosses.
And I guess Christina just had needed some help for a month. And that was private. And then it was made public by Anna to mock her. So if you would like to support Christina, she's a Twitch streamer, Cosmopolitics, and she goes live next. We'll raid her stream. But I don't really know how one can make the claim that they're for the working class and then use the fact that somebody asked them for money in a time of need against them publicly.
It's the radical left versus Jenks populist left, which of course he sold a stake to a billionaire for $20 million for it. And also, I didn't know, and sorry if I'm getting a little bit spicy here, I did not know that studio was paid for off of solicited donations from the audience.
So built for, that is now the Polymarket, then sold to Polymarket.
So fundraising from the grassroots for a building, and then taking Polymarket money, regardless of whether Peter Thiel is an investor or not, and slapping that name on the studio. That is crazy, bro. That's crazy. It's crazy to do that.
They should refund that money to the people that donated if they now got a sponsorship from a corporation, it was supposed to be a crowdsourced studio effort. And now it's a crypto betting site that's not even legal in the United States.
And
live from the Polymarket studio in LA.
And Anna's response to that, which is to say, I don't care. Well, the difficulty, Anna, might be that people tuned in because they thought you did care.
Yeah.
And this new thing where you don't care about any of this shit, it might lose you some audience. I don't know. Maybe people want to check out Social Blade for the Young Turks, see what's been going on to their subscription numbers the last couple of days.
And in terms of who's the purest leftist and who's not, I will say that I will not trying to be in competition with any other of these leftist streamers. I want to work together with them. That's part of why we had Kyle Kalinske on today. Kyle, Cristobal, Francesca Fiorentini, still there, but still think she's phenomenal. John Idarola, phenomenal. The Rational National, The Humanist Report.
Nando and Waz, I think, are
Matt
still
Binder.
there.
Sorry, say it again.
Nando and Waz, I think, are still doing
Nando
stuff
and
with them.
Waz. Yeah, I mean, even Oleemi. Like, all of these creators are allies in this movement, and excited for a future where we work with them and don't work with people who are eventually going to leave the left because some crypto betting site gave them money and they need to return some investment to a billionaire who invested in the company.
And we've heard from, we heard from the Letter Hack. We have, Lance from the Surfs, who's obviously, unfortunately, been in some of these crosshairs as well. But I just wanted to flag, too, that we've been talking about the subway violence. Go ahead, Emma.
No.
That just in the context of that, of the subway violence rhetoric and discussion, is I think I mentioned this tweet, this excerpt from James Baldwin before, talking about the wet eyes of the sentimentalist, basically being how, like, sentimentality can trump what is actually needed for sentimentality can get in the way of policy, because individual experiences can be so jarring that it makes it so that it can only inform what people think might need to be mapped onto policy, when in fact, even if someone has a traumatic experience on the subway, even if someone has been thrown in front of a train, that stuff is horrible. But you have to actually, when you're looking at outcomes relative to what people are actually experiencing on a macro scale, that's when the actual difference between facts and feelings actually comes out.
Yes.
In that you can feel scared because you heard about someone getting thrown in front of the subway. I'm not refuting whatever trauma might bleed from that or be downstream from that, but you can't make policy for millions of people or say this is the right thing based off a few instances maybe that you can count on your hand every year to then be indicative of what everyone should experience as a result. It's like that's when literally a sentimental, a feelings-based assumption and ascription overrides what should actually be done for everyone.
To construct a society.
Well, and it's not even about when perception goes up. It's when actual crime does go up. What is our actual solution to it? Is it because we aren't empowering cops so much, or is there ultimately things that are pushing people towards these outcomes? Or is it purely ideological? We know with COVID, it was and the cost of living crisis, we know what's causing these actual poor outcomes and horrible events and confrontations. And like, that's what needs to be addressed. It's not say, okay, we just need to loosen the rules on lynching people.
And we've had criticisms of defund as a slogan in that it wasn't constructive enough. Yes, the police need to be defunded to the extent that it needs to shrink. We shouldn't be having these armored vehicles that were left over from Iraq because our tax dollars went to military contracts being used to patrol our cities and our streets. That energy, or that money, I should say, should be redirected towards community policing, towards social services,
social democracy,
social services where it's not to say crime can run rampant, but where there are people who are trained in particular to deal with folks who are having episodes, or folks who may need health care or a doctor or a place to go. That is where those resources should go to, and then creating places for people to go as opposed to just locking them up. So that is where we have criticisms of the defund slogan. But if you want to say the radical left loves people getting punched in the face, I guess that's a bit more convenient for you to straw man. And it's funny, like, we played that clip of Anna saying that she was wrong about Dave Rubin. We don't need to, we can just play your words. If you want to play a clip of me saying that what was accused...
I don't know. Maybe I was wrong about Dave Rubin.
Is there a sound drop of me saying that crime... Well, I don't even... Now it's going to become that, but I don't need to mischaracterize anyone's words. Our words are out there for everybody, so...
Yeah, the panders.
Hashtag cold feet jank. Maybe debate Sam, which he offered. Or not even debate, have a conversation like Sam offered privately back in July and now just publicly now.
Well, just do the tour of all the right-wing freaks.
Let's talk to Glenn Beck. That's where we can have real.
It's definitely one final point. The idea that it's everybody else just can't stop taking shots at TYT is so embarrassingly thin when Anna's going to Lilo and Stitch and all these other, like, you know, Fridman offshoots, and just packaging like, oh, look at what this guy on our side, Lance from the Surfs, did. Just packaging that up for mileage. Let's see how much mileage we can get with these complete losers and just bash the left. It is gross to me to build a reputation off of years of good work that a lot of people respected, to then commodify that label, say, actually, no, we're the progressive. Again, we don't say that shit. We don't actually say we're the left.
No, we're media. We want to platform people who are doing good work for left-wing causes.
Exactly. We want to propagate what the left is doing. We're not originators of it, I don't think. And but if you are taking a meeting with, say, 900 millionaire or billionaire, it probably says a lot better to say, hey, we have the biggest left-wing channel on online media. How much money would you want to give us for it?
How much money could that have gone to left-wing organizations or DSA or other groups that wasn't going to what eventually would become the Polymarket Studio? So that's why a media company portraying themselves as the left is incorrect.
Usually,
if you have extra money and changing the couch cushions, it should go to leftist organizing, not a media organization. If you want to support the left movement, I appreciate the fact that we have members on this program, but I'm never going to say that donating to us is about donating to the left. It's just not the case.
No. Also, Cenk is bluffing about how open he was to a union. NLRB doesn't typically issue warnings for somebody who is just so overjoyed to. We have great discussions over here.
Yeah, I mean, the people that were, according to them, retaliatorily fired for organizing might have something different to say about that. All right, guys, gonna read some IMs and get out of here.
I don't know. Maybe I was wrong about Dave Rubin.
Maybe I was wrong about Anna.
Cole from Little Rock. People abandon the left because they have no actual convictions other than what moves them forward. I abandoned the right because my convictions propelled me past liberal to the left out of care for my fellow humans. There is a huge difference. Emma's distant cousin. If Daniel Penny was really remorseful, he would have pled guilty, apologized to Jordan Neely's family, and sought out any sort of restorative justice program where families and victims' families and victimizers meet. As a veteran and son of a disabled Vietnam vet, people can miss me with the attempt to use Penny's military service as some sort of attempt to valorize him, especially when veterans are overrepresented in those who are in the position Jordan Neely was. Exactly right. Veterans are overrepresented in the unhoused population. What's next? The death penalty for criminal mischief, where you punch a hole in the wall and throw stuff and destroy property? Yeah. I mean, LGBTQ people and veterans are overrepresented in our unhoused population, and that says a lot about what we choose to prioritize as a society, because we send these people off to war, they come back with trauma, and we don't give them health care that they need. Pete Hegseth, who is nominated for defense secretary, was working with a Koch brothers PAC to privatize the VA. More unhoused veterans who are on the fringes of society. And
Hassan was exactly right when he made the point to Cenk that I think Cenk rolled his eyes at, that actually what people are talking about with regards to crime is really homelessness and the cost of living crisis. That's absolutely it. That's the real problem in this country right now, is all the property owners charging rents have people absolutely over a barrel. Absolutely over a barrel. I'm shocked that crime isn't, frankly, far worse than it is right now.
Vinny from Buffalo. JD Vance celebrating this guy is so terrifying. I can't help to think that there will be copycats. Hey, from Jamaica. Emma and Matt, I feel you on the crime hysteria. I'm very tired of folks coddling cowards from the right wing or from the unaligned.
And again, I think America is too violent and has too much crime in a lot of places. But again, if people aren't looking at, say, Missouri, and they're only looking towards blue cities, it is a fascist propaganda product.
Johnny Blaze, holy shit, freedom of speech really does mean freedom to be white supremacist and racist now. It just really hit me it's like a good and evil are subjective, and we can't even rally about Nazi shit anymore. Fuck. Yeah.
Censorship is entirely a vehicle for right-wingers to pretend they're against.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.